Hey guys. So I'm Mikael, this is Poja, Patrik, and we come from Axians IoT operations out of Sweden. We're here to tell you why IoT sucks and also how to unsuck it. To present ourselves a little bit, we have a video that hopefully going to...
You know what sucks? I'll tell you what sucks. IoT sucks. You've taken the steps to connect business-critical assets to the internet. Look at you being in the forefront. You've taken your company into the future, making more money and creating happier customers. But as you're adding more IoT services, the simplicity goes right out the window. Each new one uses their own infrastructure with their own gateways, different operators, and cloud providers. The maintenance cost increases exponentially with every new service added. And what if your operator gets hacked? Or if there's a bug in one of the protocols? Or your cloud provider goes down? Do you even know where to start troubleshooting? You guessed it. That's why IoT sucks. And we're here to unsuck it. We give you a simple dashboard that brings order to this chaos. Update, patch, and switch with ease. Oh, and if you want to connect your legacy equipment, you can do so as easy as this. I'm not kidding. That's how cheap and easy it can be. Let me show you again. It doesn't matter what industry you're in or what devices you're using. We take you from this to this. Not only that, but we make sure no vendor locks in your IT manager. You can easily switch vendors according to your current needs.
Back hurts.
He's been in there for the last 15 years. So let's recap. We're cheaper, easier, and safer. No matter how many use cases you have, you can work within a single infrastructure. Not only that, but you own the data, so we won't even look at it if you don't want us to. And you can focus on all the added value that your IoT solutions provide to your customers. Sounds like a no-brainer, right? Now, I'm going to be honest. If you're sure that you'll have only one IoT solution and that you'll keep it that way forever, then I suggest you go with one of our competitors. They're great for that. For all other purposes,
All right? That's what we do. So let's talk a little bit about the product. If you guys want to, there's some chairs over here if you want to take those instead. Feel free. Or sit on the floor, for that matter. So let's talk a little bit what the problem is. So imagine you doing heat pumps, right? You will monitor the heat pumps, you want to control them, set the temperatures in the buildings, etc. That would come with a certain infrastructure. The problem with that scenario is that heat pumps are quite slow in how they react to the outside temperature. So there are other vendors out there, such as Lean Heat, who provide a service that will sort of like intercept that. And rather than just reading whatever the outside temperature is, it will actually make a prediction or it will be 3 to 4 hours ahead of time. So the inside temperature would directly correlate with the outside temperature. That one comes with its infrastructure. And then if you want to move on to like solar panels, they will come with their infrastructure, and you have whatever scenario you would have. And you probably see where this is going. So eventually you will have different hardware running different platforms. You have different communication providers and different cloud providers. And I'm sure you all see that this is going to be somewhat, let's call it a challenge to manage. So that's kind of where the space where we're in. So the challenges can be grouped into, first of all, onboarding, also mentioned as provisioning. That's one thing if you have one device, you want to have that one online. It's a whole different beast if you have 1,000 of them and you want to onboard them, giving them certain keys and privileges in the cloud. You have update and patching. So these devices, they run an operating system, usually Linux, like everything else. And there's no magic operating system that just doesn't need any patching without security issues, whatever. So you need to be able to do update and patching all the way from your firmware to your services, everything running on your gateways. You will have hardware independence. So eventually you will end up having different hardwares, different gateways. So certain vendors, after a while, they don't support that particular hardware you have, or maybe you have new scenarios where you have to do other kind of communication. Maybe you all of a sudden need to communicate over Zigbee. So maybe the original gateway you had didn't support that, so you need to have an update of that one. So over time, you will have different hardware. You might want to have platform independence. So whatever you choose in terms of how you want to run your application on your gateway, that might vary from time. Eventually, you also have cloud independence, where you want to have to move from one cloud provider to another, or depending on the scenario, what your preferences are. So those are the things that we're going to talk to you about today. So for those, how many of you have worked with IoT? Or brilliant, awesome. So for just we know what we're talking about and got the same kind of terminology here. So we have peripheral equipment such as sensors, meters, anything that we want to steer or read. Those are connected to a gateway, and the gateway is connected to the cloud. That might be Azure, might be AWS, IBM, Fireware, whatever it might be. And up to this point, this is really where we start creating a value. So the data comes up, we're making reports, building into applications, and making value of the data. And to do that, we might also use other data that comes from other places, such as weather data or spot price data, whatever it might be. We will focus on having different protocols like MBus, Modbus. If you haven't used IoT, these are things that you will learn eventually. Now, what I think is really unique with Vinci Energies as a company is that we work very much with Actemium, for example. These guys know what a PLC is. They speak Modbus almost natively. And they have provided a lot of help for us and understand how this all works. Actemium has also been part of building the platform that we're going to show to you today. But know that they're really good at this stuff. And Axians, the people we work with, are very heavily invested into the cloud and building applications. So that's where we kind of bring it into. And also Vinci Energies have a number of customers that we can address and enable them to take the journey to the cloud and to IoT. So what we're going to talk about today is microservice bus. So microservice bus will enable you to work with any device, any platform, any protocol. Any platform meaning AWS, IBM, Azure, and Fireware. There are others, I know, but those are the ones we mean when we say anyone. An IoT Hub, in this case we're going to talk about Azure IoT Hub, but they all look pretty much the same. So an IoT Hub have a repository of devices and their security peripherals. So certificates or keys that let the device connect to the cloud. You also have something called events. So this will be upstream data, device to cloud data. You would have something called messaging. What we refer to messaging is downstream data from the cloud to the gateway. And then you have something called state, device state. If you're on AWS, they call this a shadow. If you're using Azure, they will call it a twin. So the last part is sort of like a shared document that will be shared both on the device and in the cloud. It's a two-part document that one part is desired and can only be set from the cloud, and the other one is reported and can only be set from the gateway. You can really use this for configuration, and we're going to look at that later on as well. But if you have something, these are the sensors I want to read, or this is the preferred temperature I want you to set, state is a really good place to store that data. So the demo scenario that we're going to talk about today is going to be, we have our IoT Hub, we have a gateway, and that's going to be the gateway that Patrik has over there. Do you want to mention anything about it while you're standing there?
It's a Dell 3001 gateway which runs Ubuntu Core, which is essentially a way of running containers on an Ubuntu environment. And then we have some peripherals connected to this, which will be, if you just keep on going, we have wireless temperature sensors. We have some out on the tables, and we have some here. These read humidity and temperature through wireless M-Bus, and we will only use the temperature for this demo there.
And you have the wireless,
Yes.
the wireless M-Bus receiver up there as well.
Which is, we talk serial communication with the wireless M-Bus receiver to get the data out from. It has its own memory where it collects all these data points.
And it's in terms of wireless M-Bus, a very common protocol used very much in the real estate business.
Yep.
We're using M-Bus as well, which is a very industrial kind of, very common in the industry. And that data gets sent out to the IoT Hub, and it's going to be presented in a dashboard for Timeseries Insight. We also have a scenario where, well, first of all this is managed by microservice bus, but we also have a scenario where we will set, if the temperature goes over a certain threshold, we will start a fan over there. And that fan is going to use GPIOs, just to cool animation, right? But apart from the actual fan bit here, this is a very much a real scenario, and we're going to build it from scratch for about 15 minutes. So before we do, there's a couple of key concepts that we need to understand. First of all, what is a service? So a service is something small, a service that does something like read a sensor, parse a message, decrypt or encrypt a message, and those are the things that you might develop yourself. There's a number of services that comes with microservice bus, but this is really, when you do development, you develop these services. These services are put in and orchestrated through flows, which is a kind of a workflow where you have different services that collaborate into a workflow. These flows and services run on nodes. So nodes is our name for an agent that runs on the gateway. And the nodes, flows, and services are owned by an organization. So let me show you what that's going to look like. So if you come to Microservice Bus, this is microservicebus.com, but you can have your own instance of it. So if you go to, for example, Vattenfall, they got their own microservice bus. So here you find some information about reference cases, the different platform that we support, and also what it costs to use it. But I'm going to leave it over to Poja here to start the first demo.
Yes. So we have the nodes, a nodes page where you can see the nodes connected to the microservice bus, and that's the gateway over there. And as you can see, it's online. And you can do different actions on the node. So you can restart it. You can also shut down. I wouldn't recommend that, because if you do that, it won't go online. It's a SIM card in it, so, and you need to power cycle it.
Also, another pro tip is if you run the gateway locally on your laptop, don't try to restart.
Yeah.
Because you restart your laptop.
Yeah. So you have complete control over the gateway. And we have some properties of that gateway. You can have tags, you can have SLA levels, cost center, different modes, and protocols. We also have some info about the SIM card. You can see.
You should have mentioned that one. This gateway is connected over LTE.
Yeah.
Yes, just to add some risk to the demo.
Yeah.
IoT?
Sorry?
IoT?
No, it's running 3G, just a regular SIM card through Cisco Jasper.
We have some location data, and if I go back to the node page, you can see it. And if you have several nodes, you can place them on the map and see where they are.
And this particular gateway has GPS built into it, so it will automatically.
We have the organization page, where you can see the users and their role. There are some differences between the roles, as if you're owner, you can add more admin stuff. We have some integrations you can do with GitHub, Visual Studio, application insights. And then we have the provider. So all the nodes right now are connected to AWS. As you can see, we can go to so node. This node is now up and running in AWS, and as soon as you add more nodes to your node page, they will also show in AWS. So if something happens and you want to change provider, you just go to the organization page.
You don't like my mouse, do you?
No, I can use this one instead, so it's better. So you can change to another provider. Right now we have Azure and AWS. So if I go to Microsoft's IoT Hub, we can see that there's now no devices added to this IoT Hub. So I'm gonna give Microsoft Bus access to this IoT Hub by copying the connection string.
While you do that, so there's probably two reasons why you would do this. One would be not actually changing the provider itself, but you want to go from one data center to another. So if you're in Azure West, you might want to go to Azure North, or somewhere else because the data center is down, or your gateways are closer to another place. Or of course, if you want to do like we do now, if you want to go from one provider to another.
Yeah. So now when I change provider, I'm going to take a couple of seconds, and hopefully we'll have some IoT devices there. And that's the node right now that we just switched from AWS to Azure. And
please appreciate that was a very complex demo.
So now we need to do something with the data.
Yes,
So
let's.
Patrik's gonna talk about that.
So all this is all fine and good, right? But we kind of want to add some business value to this. And what do managers love? Can anyone guess? Yes, dashboards. So let's do one. So we'll go back into Microservice Bus, and we go to flows. And here we want to create our business logic, right? So I'm going to call this demo flow. I don't need a description. And we come into the flow designer. And the flow designer has all these services, as you can see. Let's just not get that, but and we could add those to the flow designer to tell a node to do some sort of logic. So we have inbound services, which is what starts the process, and then we have outbound, who ends the process, and other services could lay between these. So we have an Elvaco MBus reader. The MBus master there is an Elvaco. So I want to run this on my node 1. I could also add some static properties here. These are something that Mikael talked about. You could do this by static properties while you set this in your business logic, or you could do it via device state, for instance, and fetch the data therefore. I know these are all correct, so I got the serial port, I got some parity on that, and I got the speed of which I want to talk with the serial port then. So that's good. But then I need to send this data somewhere, right? So I'm going to send this to IoT events, which is a service that takes the message I sent it and we'll send this to the cloud. So if I just drag them together, and here you could add some sort of logic if you don't want to send the data if the temperature is more than 25 degrees or something like that. So if I'm just going to save this, we should be able to see that we are updating the flow. We have started, and soon enough we'll see some data. So these are temperature readings, everything, which we'll submit up to Azure and then go through to Timeseries Insight. And I don't want to show you Timeseries Insight yet because I want to give some time to actually get the data there and do some other logic on the gateway. So as we can see, it's like 22, 23 degrees in here. So let's set a threshold for our fan and tell it to turn on once we have reached a certain temperature. So I'll drag this as well, so I want to send a message to this service as well. I want to run this on the previous node, so whichever node sent the message will also run this service. So we said 23 degrees, right? So let's set it to 24, 25?
24.
Let's do 24. I'm going to save this, and we can see in the console that we are actually having started again, and we have a threshold set to 24. So we should be able to see when the temperature rises.
So I'm putting the temperature reader on a heater right now, so we just hitting there.
So let's not look at the console anymore, and let's just hope that that turns on.
Where's your faith, man?
Yeah. And in the meantime, we can actually go into Timeseries Insight, and we have the fan on. So Timeseries Insight is a great tool to actually visualize data and really drill down into the data. And there's loads of things with Timeseries, and I could talk about this for like half an hour. But the only thing you kind of need to know is you have a visual interface here, but you also have a data lake that sits behind this. So you get all your data stored. You could also enable hot storage to be able to reach a certain number of events more quickly. And you have APIs you can call and all that, and forward to Power BI for all your managers that want that. So let's go through our hierarchy here. We have France, we have Marseille, we have our conference, and we have some different sensors. And these are the serial numbers of the Ambas sensors. So if I want to show the temperature of the 80, because I think that was the one you put on top there, right? So we have had 22 degrees for a while now, but if we go back, we can see that we are reaching, this hasn't updated.
Yeah, 26.
Yes. So with 26 degrees, I should be able to see this if I just wait a bit. And this will rise. I could add other sensors as well. And I could do these in a shared view to be able to see the differences in temperature. So with a bit of luck, we should be able to see that this actually goes up so the temperature rises. But I don't see anything other than that.
You can come back to it.
Yeah, we can. So that's about it for the visualization and the dashboard demo.
All right.
So let's
So two
bring
working
Mikael.
demos.
Yes.
Let's mess it up. Eric was kind enough to give us all these ones. So we kind of prepared a demo for you guys so you can actually get started right away with them. I will put this up later on so you can, but it's BitLI and Axians DC 2019 if you want to find that site. So if you do that, you will get to the documentation page. And if I'm just going to, you'll get to this page. And this is going to explain just how you do it. Prior to doing this, you have to create an organization and a node, and this can also be found in the documentation if you just go to get started, and take a quick start, and this is really where you can, this is how you create an organization. It shouldn't take you long. You basically just create an account, create an organization. All you need to have is an IoT Hub of sort. So if you do Azure, use the same way that Poja showed. You just get the connection string, use that one, and you should be up and running. One more. So when you go through this, what do you call it? The lab or whatever you want to call it. There is a way where you need to download an image. So in your case, you have a Raspberry Pi 4, so you will download that image. Now I've already done that, so I actually have a SIM card connected into my computer right now. So if we go down to...
Not a SIM card, SD
no,
card.
SD card, sorry. So you just use, what is it called, Elena? Etcher. So that's where you just get your stuff onto the SD card. And there's a few steps that you need to do. So there are 3 files that you need to add. So you need to add your SSH key if you want to do SSH into your Pi. You need to supply your Wi-Fi settings onto your so whatever network you want to use. And there's a last step which we made a little simpler here, but I get it back to this file later on. So
let's just prove that this is unopened. This has actually not been touched, right?
you're like a magician.
Just making sure.
You could be like in a bikini.
Yeah. For the next demo.
Yeah. So it's connected. It might take a few minutes, or it'll take a minute. So this gives me time to explain the last step. So because we are administrator on microservicebus.com, we get to do something called claim, which could just the node is just kind of get up there automatically, and we can claim it. That is not available for you unless you are an administrator. So what you need to do is actually do it in another way. So when you start the node, it expects a code and the name of your node. So if you start off by creating your node, yep. So that's our gateway, by the way, that we can claim. But what you can do here, you can generate a code, and that's the code it refers to. And you have, prior to this, already created your node. And if you do those 2 things, you should be good to go. And it's all part of the documentation, so you should see it. So I can claim this one now, call it node 2. And it should come online in approximately about a minute.
Yes. So let's look at TSI and see if we've gotten any better data.
So maybe you need to refresh the page.
Yes. We should just drag this all the way to them. We don't. Let's do this. Here we got it. So we have 29 degrees on that right now. So this is a quick way to actually see the data when it comes through. You can see the data.
Show it in the graph as well. So when you have it in the grid, when you show the details of it.
The grid?
Yeah, so if you just mark something here, it's not marked.
Yeah, you want to do this?
Yeah, and you right click on that one and you have explore events.
Yeah. So here you could take this data, put it down on an Excel file if you want to create an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. And as I said, you could forward this to a number of places. Yeah, that worked as well. Great.
So we have some, so now you can see that Gateway is now online as well. No applause, really. So we still have time, so we're a bit quick. So we have a number of new, other slides that we can add into it, but there's one thing I want to point out before I get back to that. This is really property of us, so you're all free to contribute and work with us and sell this wherever you are. But let's talk a little bit about best practices when we're using this in the real world. So again, you might have any number of protocols, and you have your gateway. This one is managed through microservice bus. It's got integration into Cisco Jasper, which is a the SIM card management tool that comes from Cisco Jasper, but from Cisco, and it's used by many of the providers out there. The other one would be Ericsson, which we currently don't support, but we're willing to make that effort should there be any use case for it. ServiceNow is something that we haven't talked about at all, but every kind of incident that you would have, a node coming offline, or you have some custom exceptions where you might not get information from a sensor, those all can bubble up into ServiceNow, and you can have operation on this one. Then you have the IoT Hub. And from the IoT Hub, you would send it somewhere else. So imagine you want to send it to a backend system that might be SAP, it might be whatever system you have. We would generally go through a set of steps that we all use Azure functions for, or Lambda functions. And in the case of Azure, we always put an event hub between each of those functions. So functions might be, I want to decrypt the message, I want to
batch the
message, or whatever it might be, and parse the message, map it to another format. In between all of those functions, we put an event hub so that we can change the functions at any given time without interrupting it, and we just put it back up there. We wouldn't have lost any messages. Now, one of the challenges that we have seen is we want to have a single point where we can look into the messages, not so much from a business perspective, but from an operational perspective. So I want to know that we're getting values from all the gateways, from all the sensors. I want to see that the values that we get seems relevant. So it's more not so much a business application usage as an operational usage, if you understand what I mean. And that was previously a challenge until we came across, actually I thought I had an animation there, but let's just assume I have. So before the event hubs, we put Timeseries inside that Patrik showed before. So the good thing with version 2 of Timeseries Insight, it's not so like a one-stop shop. You can continue the flow from there using Databricks. Which is, gives you one point where you can look into all the data from all the IoT hubs, and before it's being pre-processed.
And if you have a data scientist or something like that, they would love that. They can just dig into all the IoT data and do whatever they would like in Databricks, for instance.
Yeah, and if you want to use again what Patrik showed before, and we can't emphasize that enough, that if you want to have fundings for your projects, you need to have your managers on board. So appearance is everything. So you need a, Power BI. If you can show a Power BI dashboard, they love that shit. So I forgot this was recorded.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's another service called Azure Stream Analytics that you can use that functions very well with Power BI. So you send it to Stream Analytics, and you can build really beautiful dashboards in Power BI.
Real-time data as well.
Yeah, almost.
Yes.
And we also, does anybody here ever worked with or heard of the Fireware? All right, so I won't speak so much about that. I have a few, how much more time do we have? 1 minute.
So,
Really? We started late. All right. Okay. Is there any questions? Sorry?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Yeah. So 3 minutes questions if you have any. All right. So thank you very much. If you have questions afterwards, please come up and we'll chat.